you, Zach.
Yeah.
So it was a wonderful example how the marketing analytics has turned around the business and share price of a company. So we have gotten a couple of questions. The most highly voted so far is how you connect marketing analytics with CRM, the sales, right? You have the funnel.
Yeah. So that's a complex question. There's lots of different answers to it. So we have lots of different types of games on different devices. So ultimately, what we want to see is people that are playing the games and enjoying them. That's our outcome that we're really searching for. And depending on the device, we have different ways to connect that. So, traditional web cookies connected through a DMP to our actual registration data is one mechanism. Direct registration and download through like mobile apps is another. Just having loyalty lists is another. There's probably 10 or 15 different mechanisms that we use to connect our players' identity with their play behavior and their marketing interactions. And we have to do all of them. And actually, we have to even go as far as creating real things in the games that encourage people and real reasons for people to register. Like on mobile, for example, we have a lot of anonymous users, so we have to put registration flows into the games that don't inhibit the free-to-play nature of the game, but are also meaningful for the game or for the game players, why they would want to give you that information. It's funny because we started off giving people little trinkets, and that was pretty meaningless and didn't work very well. And over time, we figured out, like, oh, there are real things that we could improve the gameplay experience if we know who you were. We could connect your Madden mobile game with your Madden console game and give you benefits back and forth and status back and forth, and those things really seem to matter a lot. But it's got to be, like I said, it's 10 or 12 different efforts across all kinds of different channels to be able to gather that information and connect the data.
And we believe to enable that, you need a team.
Yeah.
A great team to enable that. A lot of questions in the audience is about how you build a team, have different capabilities in analytics to enable you what you just mentioned.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. The building of the team is actually part of the most fun for me. So my team, I think, is 200 some people now from the little 5-person team that we started 5 years ago. And growing every year. I think the fundamental thing that we look for when we're hiring or bringing people into our team is, do they have intellectual curiosity? So do they want to solve puzzles? And if they really badly want to solve puzzles, then we can train them to do SQL code or science. I mean, we'd prefer that they have those things, and increasingly we hire people with those skills. But I think you don't get into our organization if you don't have real intellectual curiosity and want to solve and find puzzles. And that's been the core of what we do. And then, we're a video game company, so we don't take ourselves too seriously. We want to make sure that you are going to enjoy the games and want to hang out at our happy hour that we have every week. And that we have a good time. So I think people that aren't too serious and recognize that we're not, solving cancer in this case, but we're really just trying to bring people joy is another part of how we hire and determine what's going to be there. And then I think people from lots of different disciplines. We have people with pure stats backgrounds, people with business backgrounds, economics, pure computer science. Lots of different places that we're willing to hire from just to really build out a team with lots of different perspectives.
Great. So CLV is the word for the conference. We talk a lot about it.
Yeah.
And you briefly allude to that in your slide.
Yeah.
So one question is pretty challenging here is, so how about practicing that? How do you implementing that, beyond just understanding how it works?
Yeah. Implementing, we call it LTV, not CLV, and implementing LTV models has been in the mobile space in particular, has been a challenge for us. It took us a couple of years from when we really first started interacting with Pete's papers on it, to be honest, to implement it. We could figure it out and calculate it, but calculating it at scale and in short periods of time is the real challenge for us. So the faster we can get information back to the people actually buying the media, the more effective our models are. even if they're slightly less accurate. Because what we're really trying to do is determine the differences in different cohorts of people on channels and in ad campaigns and determine what their value is so they can go back and mine those populations for other high-value people that are going to enjoy that game. And so speed was the thing that was really challenging for us. Speed of calculation across very large user sets and across long time frames was the biggest difficulty. As we got that resolved, both through computing power and better algorithms, then it got much, much easier. And now we kind of throw hardware at it a lot, actually, because hardware is cheap. So I don't know that our models are actually getting that much more efficient anymore. We're really working on accuracy and throwing hardware at the problems. So.
Great. So are you a gamer before joining EA?
That's a good question. Sure. I mean, I played games as a kid. I became a gamer once I was at EA.
Gotcha.
Now I have, unfortunately, something like in Battlefield 1, I think I've played 400 hours or something crazy like that and have leveled up on 2 consoles. So, but that's, part of being effective at my job is to be able to talk to the people that live and die in making the games. The developers are, the bulk of our company and really are the key to our success. So if I want to have credibility with them, if I want to understand our consumers, I have to play the product. And so I do.
A great training before joining EA.
Yeah.
Right? So I think in the audience, I think partially people maybe look into the game analytics, but many people don't. So one question is, what is so special, what be different for game analytics versus other industries?
Yeah.
I think the answer is, if we can allude twofold it, one is like about people who don't do game analytics,
Yeah.
right? What you have used can be applicable.
Oh, I mean, it was interesting. The models that the questions that Hillary put up are the same questions. Like those are the easy questions. I mean, we have some interesting ones like matchmaking and map design and things like that are maybe different than everybody else's, but we work on churn and attribution and segmentation and all the same kind of questions that you guys do. Our solution to them might be slightly different. We want to understand churn because it guides us to make better recommendations on how you should play the game. I think one of the interesting evolutions in our field was, I don't actually think the marketing gimmick response to churn, which is give them a discount, give them something, tchotchke like that, is meaningful. We just didn't see it impact our stuff a lot. What we actually use our churn analysis for is to improve the product so they don't churn, rather than giving them something free to keep them in because then they just leave anyway. And that's probably been, I think, one of the biggest learnings that I would like to push out to people is, because we have fast product cycles, we can do that testing. In other fields, people can't do that as much, but I think it's an interesting implication. It's so easy to use the marketing response to churn, and I tend to just believe that it's kind of meaningless. It doesn't really generate long-term loyalty, which is what we're all really aiming at. But taking the churn models, figuring out who's churning why, because they spent too long on the map and are bored, means we can redesign the product to improve the product experience and prevent people from churning. Now, that's a much better value proposition for long-term engagement in the products and long-term loyalty than giving them a 10% discount on the next game or a 10% or a tchotchke of some sort to keep them in the game. And I'd say that's, if I was going to, right now, that's kind of my passion is that if I could get people to change the way they're using their churn models from creating a cheesy marketing response to actually improving the product, then I think that would be a huge win for all companies out there. So.
That's great. I see the time is running out. And before we wrap up, I just want you to, if there's one thing you want the audience to take away from your session, what would that be?
I think for me, one of the things that surprised me, because I came up as an analyst and have grown to try to work to change a company, is that I'm surprised how much I focused on when I was younger and starting my team on the models and how important the models were versus how important thinking about building a culture of analytics in the company is. As analytics people, it's our job to be advocates and evangelists and to think about building systems for good decision making that uses data rather than really focusing on the models. The models aren't actually the thing. I mean, in recommendation engines, okay, the model's the thing. But For the majority of choices that have changed EA, it's actually how we have influenced people to make decisions differently than they used to, and that wasn't really about the model in the end. You can put a beautiful model on the table like a beautiful piece of cake, and unless anybody comes and eats it, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how beautiful the cake was, what recipe you followed, how good your icing is. Those are all the things that as analysts we think about all the time, and they actually have very little, I mean, you have to do those things right, but they have very little outcome on whether you actually change the company. You have to think about the decision processes and the outcomes that are actually being chosen before you make the model, and I think that's something I would have people take away. That's really, I think, where we got traction at EA, was stop thinking about the models, start thinking about the key decisions of the company and how the models can evolve those.
So the methodology is more important than the models. So let's give a big applause to Zach. Thank you so much.